Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have another book review for you, and that is for Dune, Messiah by Frank Herbert. This is the second book in the Dune series. I had been curious about checking out more of the Dune series. I read the first book for the first time, I think about 3 years ago, or a little more, somewhere around 3 years ago. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't quite love it. And after a little while, I was kind of wondering, do I want to pick up the next book? Do I not? And so at the beginning of last year, I reread Dune, and I loved it a lot. Definite, like, top tier, like one of my favorite books that I read last year. So, that basically was the deciding factor in whether I was going to continue the series. I was like, yes, I am going to read at least the next handful of books, assuming I enjoy them. I would at least give Dune Messiah a try, and then if I liked that, then I would continue on further and all that kind of thing. And so I did eventually pick up Messiah, and I also have the next couple books in the series as well. And so I decided to read it and see what I thought of it. And I was curious what I would think of it, because Dune is pretty unanimously loved. Like, a lot of people really love that book. The rest of the Dune books, even extending beyond just the other Frank Herbert books, like even going into the other stuff written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, and all that stuff, but even just within the Dune, the core 6 books, or the core books 2 through 6 anyway, they're a little bit more divisive. There are people that, some people that like them, some people that don't, some people that are kind of in the middle. They are not nearly as universally loved as the first book is, so I was very curious what I would think of it. And I have to say, having now read Dune Messiah, I liked this, I think, just about as much as the first book, possibly even slightly more. It's hard for me to say because they're very different books. And I really enjoyed the first one, and I'd rate them pretty similarly, but I think this one was amazing. I really loved Dune Messiah. So as far as things that I enjoyed about this book, I love a lot of things about the setup of this book, where there's several different aspects to it. You have, of course, following up the first book. This is set some years after the first book. And so you have Paul Atreides, who is kind of this Messiah-like figure, who is leading this jihad across, conquering and all these things. And so you have him, you have people who are working against him, plotting against him, a lot of political intrigue and things like that. You have other things going on with, thinking about, like, he needs to have, like, an heir to the throne, and trying to figure out how things are going to go with that. You have certain, I'm not going to say what exactly, because I think it's something that's really interesting to see if you don't already know about it, which I really didn't going into this. I mean, I kind of did, but not entirely. But there is a certain returning character from the first book that is handled in a very interesting way that also has to do with all of that, like the plotting against Paul and all these kinds of things. And it sets up all of these very interesting ideas that I think are followed through with in some very interesting ways. So you have a lot of different things going on in this book, where you have, like, the political intrigue, you have the religious aspects of, like I said, Paul being this kind of Messiah-like figure and leading these people. And then you have the people who are trying to work against him, and him having these visions and kind of knowing what he kind of has to do in a sense. And just all of these different kinds of things that are just very, very interesting to me and done in a very interesting way, and are weaved together into a story that feels really cohesive, and bringing in all of these elements, like each individual element of this story to me was really interesting, and seeing the way that they were all brought together to tell one cohesive story, I think, was excellently done. I also really enjoy, like, just all the stuff that happens in this book. Like, there was all kinds of moments in this book that I really loved. I was always intrigued to see what was going to happen next. And again, with the setups of everything, like there is a certain part about this book that I mentioned of a certain returning character who I'm not going to get into because I would consider that to be kind of a spoiler. But the way that was handled and like everything to do with that, I was super interested in and super intrigued by. So I was like, how in the world is that going to play out? The stuff to do with Paul trying to figure out things about like having an heir. I was like, that's really interesting. Seeing people trying to work against him, all the political stuff going on. I was just, all of these setups were like, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, wondering how things were gonna go. And so I really enjoyed that about it as well. I also really liked the dialogue in this book. There's a lot of dialogue in this book. This book is very different from the first book. Like, the first book definitely also has a lot of dialogue and political intrigue and stuff. This one's much faster paced. It's obviously much shorter. It's like half the length, if that, or I think it's probably more like a third of the length if I had to guess. But much faster paced, much less epic in scale, much more small scale, character focused kind of thing. But the dialogue I did find really interesting, and this is, to me, much more character and dialogue driven than the first book was, even though that one certainly had a lot of that in it. Really enjoyed the dialogue in this book. There's a lot of really interesting conversations in this book that are, I think, thematically rich in a lot of ways. Like, there are certain bits of dialogue and discussion within this book that really kind of get across a point that I really liked and really kind of enhanced the themes of this book for me, that I thought were really interesting. I really also loved the ending of this book. The ending of this book, I think, was fantastically done. Like, the last maybe 2 or 3 chapters of this book, I was just super into it, and I was like, this is really cool, this is really interesting, I'm excited to see where this goes, and all these kinds of things. The ending of this book, basically, I just think was fantastically done. The book in general, I think, was fantastically done in so many ways, you know, weaving all of these different plot elements together, and the dialogue and the themes, which there's all kinds of things going on with that in terms of like religion, in terms of, you know, Paul being this kind of messiah figure, and all these kinds of things that are all just weaved together into this book really, really well and really interestingly, that I really enjoyed. And it's like I said, a very different book from the first book. Like, there's in so many ways, like, this is much more small scale. It's, you know, obviously a shorter book, much more philosophical in its dialogue and its themes, I think, and just different in all kinds of ways. It's, I think, darker than the first book as well, and just all kinds of ways in which it is very different, but to me it feels like a very natural, very like, it feels like it fits really well with the first book. Like, if I were to liken it to something else that I can think of, I would liken it to something like the 2 video games, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Very different thematically, very different in tone, very different in basically every single way outside of relating to the same storylines and characters, but they fit together super well, and that to me is Dune and Dune Messiah. Like, it feels the same way to me, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate when stories in general are able to do something like that, so I really enjoyed it here as well. As far as things that I didn't like about this book, the only thing I can think of is there was a little while, kind of in the 2/3, 3/4 area of this book, there was a handful of chapters that kind of lost me a little bit, where I kind of checked out and I was like, okay, this isn't quite as interesting to me. But that literally is it. Like, that is everything that I didn't care for in this book, which is not really all that much, and in the grand scheme of the book was not a big issue by any means. Overall, I really loved this book. I loved the character work, I loved the dialogue, I loved the writing as well, the writing style. I really enjoyed it in the first book as well, but this one, I think combined, they really kind of showed me, like, I really like Frank Herbert's writing style. It's a little different than what I'm used to, but once I kind of get into the flow of it, I really enjoy it. And just the themes and the ideas, the concepts, the things that were, the ideas that were played with in this book are ones that I found very interesting. And still, even now that I finished it, I'm like, that is just a really interesting way to go about things. And I just loved this book a lot. And not only that, but it is also extremely impressive to me, because this is my third 5-star read in a row, which is very rare. Very rare that I have more than 2 5-star reads in a month, let alone 3 in a row. So that's just crazy to me. So of course, as far as a rating out of 10 that I would give this book, I would give this a 9.5 out of 10. 5 stars, you know, great book. I really liked it. I can see why other people are a little more mixed on it because it is so different, but I really liked it. I thought it was really cool and interesting, and I loved it from beginning to end, basically. Of course, with that little bit kind of in the 2/3, 3/4 area aside, which even then I still liked, it just kind of lost me a little. But other than that, like beginning to end, had a great time reading this book. I really loved it, and I cannot wait to read the next one, and I am planning to read the next one very soon, because I've been told by some people that I should, you know, it works better to read books 2 and 3 kind of close together. So I think that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to read Children of Dune very soon. I think that's the next one anyway. So pretty much it for this review. Let me know in the comments if you have read Dune Messiah, what you think of it. Do you agree with me? Do you really like this one? Do you not like this one so much? How do you think it compares to the first book in terms of how you feel about it? Do you like the first one better? It seems like most people probably do, but if you happen to like this one better, let me know in the comments and all that stuff. And be on the lookout for a review of the next book here, hopefully, very soon. So that is pretty much it for this video. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.